Hey everyone, this is Mary Beth McAndrews from Dread Central, and I'm super excited to be here today with Jeffrey A. Brown, director of The Unheard, which is out now on Shudder. How
Hello.
are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Loved your film The Beach House. Disgusting, incredible. You wrote
Thank
and
you.
directed that. You
Thank
just
you.
directed this. What was that like to go from writing and directing a movie to just directing from a script from another pair in this
Uh,
case?
I felt like the hard work, the heavy lifting was kind of done for me. When I first read the script, that there were things about it that I just gravitated towards immediately, which was kind of nice, and for me to kind of focus on some other aspects of the filmmaking process. We had to also we did some rewrites to kind of make it fit our budget because it's still a very kind of small movie. And so I
Yeah.
think when you're a good writer, as the Rasmussens are, you don't really think about the budget, you just think about the story. And so there were some elements of the script that were really kind of beyond our scope, and I kind of knew that when I first read it. And so we worked together to kind of get it into what the movie that you're seeing. But I liked it. It was a good process. For me, it was, I was very interested in that. I do love writing, and I wanted to try to do something kind of totally different from the Beach House, even though it's still shot in Cape Cod. It was a low budget movie, and you have a female protagonist, so it's like, did we get that far from it? I think so, but
Oh
what?
yeah, 100. I was laughing. I was like, "Wow, you really like beaches, huh?" But then they are very different movies.
Yeah, we're trying.
Well, then, so how, like, what initially drew you to The Unheard? Like, kind of, how did you get brought into the project?
So it all started right around the start of the pandemic.
Okay.
Beach House had done its festival run was in the fall of 2019, and then it came out in Shudder July of 2020. And I
Mhm.
think before it came out, our producer Andrew Corkin was like, "Hey, I've read this script; it might interest you." And he sent it to me, and I read it, and I just primarily the first thing was that my I have hearing loss in my family. So one of my cousins is on my mother's side was totally deaf growing up. My grandfather, there's degenerative hearing in my family, and my grandfather was pretty much totally deaf by the time he passed away in his 90s.
Okay.
And he was a doctor. And one of the things he told me, I always remember from him saying, is that medical science was not at a point where it can restore hearing. Once you lose hearing, once you have hearing damage, it's gone. And he'd always hoped that medical science could restore his hearing. And cochlear
Um,
implants they replicate hearing, but it's like it bypasses your ear essentially. So
yeah.
it is hearing, but it's actually much different. Sound of Metal shows what a cochlear implant sounds like, I think,
Yeah.
very well.
Okay.
Um, so that was like the first thing. And then also my father has hearing loss. I have some damage to my hearing from some concerts, but it was something that my father was just always very serious. It's like, you have to think about your hearing as you get older because it's probably going to go away. And so that was, I think, the initial thrust of what drew me to the script. And then from the Beach House, an aspect of it that I was into is sound. That's something on a low budget you can do quite a bit with sound. And so it kind of, I felt the script set up a lot of opportunities to do some weird, cool things from a sound perspective, and not just the
Oh yeah.
score, but also, just the design in general. And something I learned from Beach House is, as you grow as a filmmaker, kind of leaving space for sound design and score. And that was something that I really wanted to try on this one. And so it just kind of all lined up. And it was a much more of a psychological, supernatural horror film that was different from the Beach House, which I saw as a very cosmic, Lovecraftian
Yeah.
horror, which is how it was designed. So
Cool. Well, the sound, I mean, like the sound design in this piece is incredible because, we start out hearing what Chloe hears. It's very muffled. And the way that that's played with is so fascinating throughout. So, what was that process like working with the sound designer? Like, what
it
was that like? And was the script have that? Or did you kind of come to the film wanting to play with that sound design even more than was in the script?
the script had it, I think, to an extent. I think we
Okay.
pushed it way more than they probably would have wanted us to, because it's kind of a silent movie for the first half hour.
Yeah.
Which if you're open to that, it's neat. If you're not, like, I don't know what to tell you. I actually we hired our sound designer, Colin Alexander, pretty early in the process. I was like,
Oh,
I'm
cool.
remembering some Zooms with him and our editor, Aaron Crozier, and some other key members of the team before we started shooting. So we were having some Zooms and kind of discussing our approaches. And both Colin and our composer, Rolly Porter, who Rolly also worked on the Beach House, they were very nervous about the first third of the movie that is largely
Oh.
silent, because they're like, we're not, there are, what, for lack of a better word, there are deaf movies. Like there's a Ukrainian film called The Tribe, which I consider to be a
Oh,
truly,
yes.
have you
That's
seen that movie?
horrifying. It's
It is,
horror. It's wild.
it is a very disturbing movie.
It's
And
disturbing.
yeah, it's rough. It's like irreversible rough. I was
It
like,
is.
there's like a dance aspect to it, dance aspect, like the movement is very,
Yeah.
mannered in that film. And my wife likes dance, and I was like, oh, maybe she'll like this. And then as it went on, I was like, oh no. But that movie has no score, no subtitles, no
Yeah.
sound design whatsoever. I think they just have like some, I don't know what they probably just use practical sound, but that is a deaf film, and we knew right away that that our film was for hearing audiences. So
Okay.
it gave us some leeway to kind of, well, how can we approximate deafness? Like, what are ways to do it, like, like an expressionistic kind of thing? And
Okay.
then we kind of went through the script and made like a chart of like Chloe's world, which is the deaf world, and then like the world outside of Chloe, and then like Chloe's psychological level, where she's hearing things, like she hears the TV and it's distorted. So we kind of
Yeah.
just had a chart. And then as we started cutting the movie, it's like we started morphing this into different things, and like high pitches could carry over, and it was kind of a like a sculptural process with the sound. I like really loud music, and so it was something where, how could I make a movie that felt like some of these concerts I'd seen? There's a very, to me, there's a very musical aspect to the movie.
Yeah.
And noise music isn't, that's a contradiction. You can't have noise music, is not a thing. It's like it's noise or it's music in a way. I mean, people can
Yeah.
argue whether all noise is musical, which it is, but anyway, so like, some of that noise stuff, I wanted to try to incorporate that into the movie as well. you know
Well, and so I'm a huge found footage person. So I was super excited for this because I know that you play with like VHS tapes and lo-fi analog horror stuff, but then also the idea of almost finding sound, which I thought was so cool, especially in these parts where Chloe, I won't spoil, but like finds a sound basically in a part of the floor. And I wanted to hear from you a little bit your approach to filming the VHS tapes and how you captured, like, did you film it and then did you kind of like do all the stuff, come on now, but like the warps like afterward, and kind of how did you approach that? Because I love that stuff so much.
Thank you. Well, so that was a whole, on top of the sound chart, there was like another chart of all of the home video footage, and that was something else that
Okay.
was originally in the script. Chloe watching these tapes of her mother.
Yeah.
And we got our director of photography, Owen Lavelle, brought his camera that he used in high school, had it shipped to him, and so we shot it. We had this big list of all this stuff that we had to shoot, and we brought in some actors, the actress who plays Chloe's mother, and we just had, I think, about 2 days of shooting VHS footage of stuff with no lights, no real continuity, no real script. It was all like kind of improvised, of just like, because I knew it was just beats, it's just bits that we were going to use. So you could film 6 hours of the stuff and then just kind of mold it down. So then we shot it on high 8 and transferred it to VHS. And then I also was really into like glitch art, and so I
Oh my
figured
god,
out,
glitch art is so cool.
yeah, I love it.
Pixel
And
sorting and stuff too. Oh, that shit is so cool.
which,
Anyway,
I'm sorry, what?
pixel sorting, have you ever heard of that too?
No, no. I mean, it came from like, data moshing and pixel sorting, are those kind of the same? Are they in
They
the?
might be. I've never heard data moshing before. So
Oh, data moshing. It's like in music videos where you like they have interlaced images and like one pushes through the other one.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'm in this weird subreddit that's glitch art, and they talk about pixel sorting just in the subreddit of glitch art. I love glitch art.
Yeah. So I got some of these like analog video editing boxes, which are essentially the easiest way to describe it are effects pedals for your television. And they're
What?
analog. Yeah, you can find, I mean, they don't make them anymore. So that's the thing. It's like they're not real expensive, but
Oh,
it's like if it breaks, you're kind of screwed because it's like, and then we were out in Cape Cod, which is isolating. And so, I started experimenting with glitching and, finding, you can go online and find some of these, things how to do it. But like the company that I got one of the boxes from, I was like, well, how do you use this? He's like, well, you figure it out. That's how you use it. And I was like, all right, thanks. But thankfully I gave myself some time to play with it. And a lot of the glitch footage we glitched before we shot it because we used no green screens, which was something I was very adamant about because
okay.
people, I think green screens are great if you're, James Cameron and you have hundreds of millions of dollars where you can do whatever you want. But even then,
Yeah.
I mean, James Cameron's great. I'm not criticizing James Cameron because he'll probably reach through the television and kill me or something. But like, he'll figure out a way. But like, I think on lower budget films, I notice green screens a lot. They're like one of my nails on chalkboard things. And I just knew we were, especially with the television, shooting TVs is a whole other kind of thing. And so
Yeah.
I had like another chart. I made a lot of charts and things.
I was gonna say, wow, there's a lot of really cool charts going on for this movie.
It's it's detailed. It was during the pandemic. I was sitting in, what am I going to do? It's like, I'd much rather figure out how we're going to shoot these scenes with the television than do something else. And like, I kind of basically, there's like 8 different versions of the shot with the TV. It's like the TV clean. It's like Chloe facing the TV and like what was going to be on the TV, like if we saw the TV. And also I didn't want to use a flat screen. It had to be an old school kind of tube television. And that was very important to me because it's like, well, if it's a flat screen, which makes it easier for filming or easier for doing green screens, but like doesn't fit. Like the house is supposed to be frozen. Like, mom disappears and they left, and it's been kind of empty-ish, but it's not something they update. And so that was also kind of a carryover from the beach house, which was, I love beach houses and I love older architecture and design of suburban houses, especially in Cape Cod. So you get a house that's 50 to 100 years old, to me is way more interesting than newer constructions, which you can make, making the quotidian interesting is another challenge. But on a low budget movie, locations are very much kind of, they're not as they are. Like our design team, our art team did a lot to the house, which was, they did a great job. It's not like you find it, show up and shoot, but still it's like the heavy lifting. It's like back to the script where the heavy lifting is done for you.
Yeah. So are you from Cape Cod?
No.
Okay. I was like, are you like
No, I'm not at all. It's so weird. No, I grew up in Northwest Indiana and I grew up about a half hour from Lake Michigan.
Okay.
And we grew up going to Lake Michigan and around the coast of Lake Michigan, you have a lot of kind of summer houses and summer cottages.
Yeah.
But I've lived in New York for over 20 years. And with the beach house, we scouted the entire East Coast because I was a location scout and a manager I still am for 20 years. And so scouting for the show Billions or scouting for some other projects, I had the opportunity to go out to the Hamptons or to go to the Jersey Shore. I scouted for the movie The Road in like 2009. And so I drove the entire Jersey Shore. And then you just kind of, beach house was like a kernel then. And then I'd gone to Cape Cod on vacation, and that was always kind of, and I actually went there on a shoot as a PA, like right out of college. Like one of the first things I ever PA'd on was some really terrible movie. And they went to Provincetown, and I was like, well, you can do this, But I think it's a mixture of growing up close to a kind of vacation home environment. Yeah. And then with Beach House, it was just, I love beach houses. A friend and I were always like, these beach houses are so big and so cool. Like we should set an entire movie here. And that's where that came from. And then with this, the script was written, Beach House wasn't written specifically for Cape Cod. This
Okay.
one was. The Rasmussens are from
Oh,
Cambridge,
okay.
and they had gone to Wellfleet and written this, came up with this story because they kind of the similar sense that I did, where it's like Cape Cod in the off season is really cool and spooky and haunting, and like we thought it was a nice. We all agreed it was a great environment for, you know, kind of a spooky little movie or a haunting film. In both cases,
Yeah.
I think they both are haunting in different ways.
So was it haunting to film there in the off season?
Yeah, it's spooky. I
So
mean,
weird.
there were coyotes. Like one night, we heard coyotes like howling outside. It's
Weird.
just filming in Cape Cod.
Quiet.
It's very quiet. I mean, the other thing is, you know, we're exploring silence. Nothing is ever truly silent. I think I read somewhere for Sound of Metal, the sound mixer went to like one of those chambers that is like the quietest place on earth where you can hear your heart beating, and you like go crazy. It does things to you. It's a really psychedelic experience. It kind of warps your perceptions, and I think I
Yeah.
was more interested in perception as opposed to silence. It's like, what, you know, how do we
Cool.
perceive the world? You know, what is the you know, the conversation between our brains and you know, sight and touch and taste and smell. I just read this science fiction book that Project Hail Mary. I don't know if you've read that. The guy that wrote
Oh,
The Martian.
I was reading the back of that recently, actually.
I loved it. I thought it was
Oh,
great.
cool. Okay.
I'm sure the movie will come out. I like I like The Martian too, but they make an interest. The writer has like a throwaway line where it talks about how taste and smell are essentially the same sense. You know, we think of five senses, and it's like smell is taste at a distance. And I was like, oh man, what a great little like zinger in there. And these were things that I'm a big Philip K. I read a lot. I'm a big Philip K. Dick guy, and his books are very much about perception and about the world outside us. And that Chloe, you know, is interacting with the world, and that's with silence and with deafness. You can creatively kind of, you know, explore perception and explore, you know, really to me the movie is about, you know, where do the voices in our head come from, and you know, so that to me was a big thing that also plays into what you brought up earlier about the sound design in the world of hearing, and like that was just something that was an opportunity for me to explore cinematically in ways that I hadn't seen. You know, it's like Sound of Metal does really cool things. Coda, I mean, I'm just, these are like off the top of my head movies that are
Yeah.
dealing with deafness. Coda isn't so much. Coda is much more about it doesn't show like it shows deafness, of course, but it doesn't like sink you into it as Sound of Metal does. And our film is much more of like a experiential film as opposed to kind of a narrative. I mean, there's a story to our film, of course, but like, you know, I wanted it to be an experience that you in watching it, you kind of notice the sounds around you. My friend who saw it in Boston was saying that about when he was watching it, he was thinking about the people eating, like having popcorn behind him, because it's like it's so silent, you hear everything. And so, you know, that was something
Oh,
that I didn't even intend. And I was like, well, that's pretty cool, because I was, you know, it being a Shudder film, I always knew it was going to be out on a Shudder. I didn't think about theatrical so much. You know, of
yeah.
course, you want the movie to come out as much as you can, but you know, as I watched a lot of the Shudder films, especially during the pandemic, it was me alone in my house, just like at night, you know, watching Host, and then like making sure the doors are locked. So it's
Yeah.
like, oh
Well, I mean, I
man,
watched this in the dark with noise canceling headphones on, and like that is an incredible experience because you really hear it. I mean, like you hear these parts where you hear Chloe's heartbeat very faintly too, and it is a really like it really sinks you into that experience. It is really wild because I was like, how much time has passed? It was like an hour had passed, and I was like, whoa, what? Like it was really cool to have that experience watching this for sure.
I'm so glad. I mean, that's what it like. The bottom line was, it's just this very intimate movie. Noise canceling headphones. We should recommend that on the Shutter site. Be
Yeah,
like,
and it's like hypnotizing. It's really interesting. I got into like a weird like flow hypnotic space watching it. It was really cool. Maybe that was
and
just me, but I
no,
don't know.
I
It was cool
oh
to watch it with the noise canceling headphones to really like live in that sound slash lack thereof of sound.
and Lachlan is a great kind of guide for, you know, that was like something else. Is just like, you
Yeah.
know, Lachlan taking you on this journey of them, you know, experiencing this world, because we didn't have any of the sound design when we were making it. And there was another movie my editor and I watched called Personal Shopper with Kristen Stewart. That was
I love that movie. It's so weird.
Yeah, the thing about it, and like Kristen Stewart, I think, is really phenomenal in it because she's creating the supernatural. The supernatural element is solely through her, and I thought that was something interesting that I wanted to do in terms of performance, because I think actors there's so many things that go into acting, but like the imagination of an actor too, and like Lachlan is someone who has a very strong imagination, and so that they were able to kind of show what they're hearing without hearing what what was in the floor. It's like kind of like, well, it sounds like this, and then Lachlan kind of like does their thing, and you're like, oh, nice.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today about The Unheard. Everyone, The Unheard is streaming now on Shudder, so please go check it out. Watch it with noise-canceling headphones in the dark. That is our recommendation for you. And thank you so much, Jeffrey, for your time.
Thank you, Mary Beth. Nice to meet you.